1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It's working.
1, 2, check, check, 1, 2. You're getting it good. You have to speak up like there's no mic. It's slow. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Can you? Is there more? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1. I'm right next to speakers. It seems still a little low. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Could everybody please find their seats so that we can get started? We have a lot of business to do, so I want to get started on time tonight. Filling up nicely. I'll give everybody a minute to find their seats. Okay, with the warrant properly posted and returned and a quorum present, I call this meeting to order. I'd like to start the meeting by introducing our assistant moderator over in the gym, Vanessa Moody. Something new this year is I have a screen so I can tell if anybody's standing in line. So a little bit of a reminder that will be better than last year. David Rogers, our veterans agent, and we've got the flag ready to go on the screen. Okay, give me a minute. Well, there's an old saying that you can't please all the people all the time, especially at town meeting. But I believe only one person might not be totally pleased when I ask you to join me in thanking our humble retiring veterans agent, Dave Rogers, for his service to the veterans.
I want to thank everybody for that. It was not expected, but thank you.
Dave, could you bear with us for 1 sec? We're not ready with the...
Oh, okay. While they're figuring it out, I just want to say again, it's always about my clients over the years, not about me, and I've been privileged to serve the town in this capacity. Thank you.
So we've got a bit of a challenge with our presentation, but let's get started with the pre-business anyways. We've got our flag over here. Dave, could you lead us in Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Could I have Candace Sliney come up, please, for our land acknowledgement? Candace.
Good evening. We acknowledge the land on which we reside, now known as the town of Marblehead, is the ancestral homeland of the Namkig Band of the Massachusetts and the Pawtucket tribes. They lived here under the leadership of the great sachem, Nanapashmet. Since time immemorial, the Namkeg people maintained this land and surrounding water with the utmost respect, preserving it for future generations and treating it as sacred ground for the burial of their dead. They had an organized and thriving community before the arrival of European settlers. The Namkeg people suffered great loss during King Philip's War and the smallpox plagues, and the surviving members were dispossessed of the land. Although we are unaware of any Namkeg descendants living in Marblehead today, we honor the Namkeg people of the Massachusetts and the Pawtucket tribes, past and present, as the original stewards of this land, and we pledge to include their history in the history of our town. Thank you.
And I'd like to call up the co-chair of the Task Force Against Discrimination, Diane Gora.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for recognizing me to present this statement on behalf of the Selectmen's Task Force Against Discrimination. My name is Diane Gora, and I am a co-chair of the Task Force Against Discrimination, as well as a first grade teacher at Glover School. Marblehead is a no place for hate community. The task force this year is celebrating its 25th anniversary. The TFAD mission statement is, the Marblehead Task Force Against Discrimination is committed to ensuring that Marblehead is a respectful, supportive, welcoming, and inclusive community for its many diverse citizens and visitors. The task force, as an agency of the Select Board, invites all citizens to contact the Selectman's office to inform us of concerns and suggestions. Criminal activity should always be reported to the Marblehead Police Department. The task force also reminds all residents to express respect in word and action at home, work, and school for all people. We are all responsible for making Marblehead a community that celebrates diversity and is no place for hate. Thank you.
And I've been asked by the Select Board to say a few words. Erin Noonan and Moses Grader.
Good evening and welcome to 2024 Town Meeting. On behalf of the Select Board, we want to acknowledge Jim Nye's 19th and last town meeting as a sitting board member. When you volunteer in town, you make a commitment to share the most precious resource, which is your time, for the betterment of the town, and Jim has certainly given us 19 years of volunteerism, and we are deeply grateful for his exceptional service to the town of Marblehead.
So, Jim, after 19 years, your departure will be a great loss. It's been a real honor serving with you, and the whole Select Board will miss his almost unlimited capacity to listen, his legendary incisive brevity, and his unflappable smile at the table. What we admire most about Jim is the respect and kindness which he treats all people, even under the most trying circumstances. One of Jim's favorite sayings is, just be kind. Of course, as we all know, that's a lot easier said than done. His other admonition is, sometimes you just have to take it, which is his version of turning the other cheek. Jim makes it easier for all of us to follow his lead because he's a steadfast example of his admonitions, calm and collected, with an easy sense of humor. Jim brought these qualities to the board. He always believed in the primacy of a collegial board, and that regardless of the disagreements and political persuasions of one's colleagues, the Select Board's primary obligation is to maintain the example of civil discourse so that practical decisions can be made year in and year out for the well-being of all Marbleheaders according to the wishes of our voters. As a man of integrity, self-effacing humility, high intelligence, and good judgment, Jim has been a standard bearer of the board's fiduciary trust and a pillar of our community, all while maintaining and remaining down to earth, a true Marbleheader, and a consummate friend for all. Thanks from all of us, Jim.
Moses, you told me that was going to be a roast. So the way we're going to do our business tonight with presentations and debate. The microphone down here at the lectern that faces the crowd is for presentations only. Oh, it's great to see that screen up. And the microphones in the aisles are for rebuttal. We're going to have a limit of 10 minutes with one exception on presentations tonight, and we're going to have a limit of 2 minutes. Sometimes I'll keep a clock on the debate on the articles for each speaker. When you step up to a microphone, please state your name and address so that everybody knows who you are. I'll be announcing each article by number and reading the title. The motions, thank goodness, will be on the screen. And for longer articles, you can find the wording in the Finance Committee report. If you have an amendment to make to a main motion, I may request it to be in writing. If so, please come to the stage to do so, and we have some forms that you can fill out. I'll do my best not to have a clock on presentations and deliberations, but there will be motions which I will adhere to a strict two-minute limit on speakers after a presentation is made, and I will make that known at the appropriate time. I want to thank this legislative body for your support at my first meeting last year and for the support I've received leading to tonight. Preparation for town meeting takes an incredible amount of time over several months, and much of that is done by volunteer neighbors who give their time and service to perpetuate our coveted form of democracy. Our volunteers really deserve a round of applause. I will not tolerate catcalling or disruptions in the meeting. You will notice in my letter to the town that I may not always allow a motion to call the question should I deem that the motion would restrict informed consideration of the meeting or comes before an appropriate discussion has taken place on the main motion. This is a widely used town meeting practice. On the other end, we will likely get to the point where I need to remind everyone of an old Marblehead town meeting saying, "It appears that everything has been said, but not everybody has had a chance to say it." I will do my best to balance the conveyance of information with the budget of time. I hope you will join me in running this meeting of Marblehead's legislative body with the respect and integrity that it deserves. Before we move to the electronic voting tutorial, per the Marblehead Fire Department, everybody needs to be seated in order to vote. So if you aren't seated, please find a seat. And it seems like the lines will slow down a little bit outside, but if we start to see more people come in, please try to bunch up and open up some seats.
They're being rejected. They're being all going out to the gym.
Okay.
They've started to file into the gym.
Okay, on to electronic voting. Electronic voting will be used for the first time at this year's town meeting. This option is made possible at my discretion by a vote of last year's town meeting. When electronic voting is in use, ballot and hand count voting options are discontinued. Everyone was given a clicker when you came in, and the clickers are location specific. So you can't come from the gymnasium back into the Performing Arts Center or vice versa. If you don't have a clicker or have trouble, please go to the lobby and switch it out. There'll be 30 seconds to vote on each motion, and I will give a clear start time before each vote. If you leave the room, you'll be asked for your clicker at the door. When the night is over, there will be people collecting at the doors, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for once again stepping up to help us out. If you leave with your clicker, which I hope you don't do, it's deactivated. So it can't be used unless we turn it back on. They cost the town money. They're not souvenirs, so please be sure to put them in the baskets at the end of the night. We're now going to do 2 practice questions before we start. And I didn't pick out either one of them, so, but they're good. Peter, are we ready? Peter? No? Okay. So there was a time when I was sitting out there during playoff hockey season, and I was hoping that the game could be put up on the big screen, but I don't think that's going to happen tonight. But we have a question. Now, everybody's got their clicker. You've got a green yes button. You've got a red no button. I'm going to start 30-second voting now. The question is, will the Bruins win the Stanley Cup? Sorry. And let's start the voting now. Can everybody see the count on the bottom? And then after the 30 seconds, you're going to see the results on the yes and no. Oh. Not as close as I thought it would be, but. Okay, second test question. Oh, excuse me. Is Marblehead the birthplace of the American Navy? We're going to start the voting now. Just so everybody knows while you're voting, if you vote one way, the only thing that counts is the last button that you hit within the 30-second time frame. So far, so good. Ah, there we go.
So the gym is just filling it. You're just getting into it. You're going to keep going, right?
Yep. Okay, so that's how we're going to do our votes tonight. Bear with me as we work through this new technology, but I really think it's going to give us a pure vote, and it's definitely going to expedite our business. So thank you for your patience. Okay, are we ready to do some business? Article 1. Does it get better after 1? Article 1 is to take articles in numerical order. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? If you favor the article, use your green yes button. If Point of order?
Is this on? End the motion, please.
Okay, can you come up and put it in writing, please?
Sure.
Oh, wait a minute. Did I get a second?
Yeah, that's what we're waiting for.
I'll be right back.
So, move that we begin with Article 42 and continue through Article 53 before taking up Article number 2 through 41. Yeah,
It's and then transfer station fees. We'll see what happens.
so the motion is to move that we begin with Article 42 and continue through Article 53 before taking up Article 2 through 41 in order. Made by Dan Albert. Excuse me? Yes. Do I have a second? We have a second. If you favor the article, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. The motion, oh, hello? The motion, oh, Greg? The motion fails. Okay. I know. Hello? Greg? Hello, testing, 1, 2. Hello? Greg? Greg? Volume up? My volume seems to be down. Testing, thank you. Article 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Back to the main motion. Back to Article 1, articles in numerical order. If you favor the article, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Okay, the motion carries. Article 2, reports of town officers and committee. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, we have a second. Kim Grad from the library. Oh.
Okay, now you can hear me. All right, thank you, Jack. I'm Kimberly Grad. I'm the director of Abbott Public Library, and thank you for having me here tonight to give you a little update. First of all, I want to thank you to the town. I want to thank the town of Marblehead for supporting the Abbott Public Library renovation project. Now, this 17th century town finally has a 21st century library. Yes. So I'm often asked if we're on budget for this project, and indeed we are. We are also grateful to the Abbott Public Library Foundation, Yerim Chun, and her leadership team, and for the generosity of our donors. The second question I'm asked is if we're on schedule. The answer is yes. After 3 years, about 3 years of development and construction, we are on track for a late spring opening, and we're going to announce that date later on this month. We're currently in the second week of moving back to 235 Pleasant Street, and it's going very well. Our Maverick Street neighbors will be very happy when we're finished, and we thank them for their patience during this renovation and moving process. So before I go on to some of the highlights of the renovation, I want to take a minute to remind you what the library is all about and how you, as a town resident, can benefit from using the library. So we support early literacy and lifelong learning. We offer the freedom to read what you choose. We are the link to trusted information. We have inclusive and adaptive spaces for meeting, and we support civic engagement through collaboration and connection. And we offer a wide range of programs for all ages. So, some of the highlights of the renovation include a reorganized main level, which is now compliant with ADA requirements. We have new heating and air conditioning, electrical, lighting, flooring, plumbing, and ceilings. We have 3 small meeting rooms on the main level, and new landscaping will begin in a couple of weeks. You'll find new technology throughout the building, and that includes audiovisual equipment in the event center and the Carton Gallery, a makerspace and a sound booth, self-checkout kiosks and digital signage, and improved internet access and charging stations. And now, I'm glad to have the chance to thank Gary Embrick for his service as chair of the Board of Trustees and the Building Renovation Committee. We are very fortunate to have Gary on this project, as he has been able to offer his expertise and support to our contractors and our project managers. Thanks also to our past and current members of the Board of Trustees. Right now, it's John Williams, David Ross, Kathy Barker, Jennifer Jewell, and Deb Payson. I also want to give a big cheer to the other members of the Building Renovation Committee who've been meeting faithfully every 2 weeks for the past couple of years. That includes Nancy Arata, Kathy Bradford, Ken Fisher, John Williams, and our partners at Johnson Roberts Associates and CHA Consulting. Thanks also to all of our financial sponsors, especially the Abbott Public Library Foundation, the Second Century Fund, the Harold B. and Elizabeth L. Shattuck Memorial Fund, the Friends of Abbott Library, the Driftwood Garden Club, and once again, thank you to the community of Marblehead for your support in a time of great change at Abbott Public Library. We can't wait to see you there, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at all of the wonderful improvements. So we'll see you at the library. Thank you.
We seem to have a communication problem in the gymnasium, which we need to take a minute to figure out. Vanessa, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I guess we figured it out.
Well, no. So the problem is we can hear you, but it's echoing so much that it's really hard. The clarity is not great, so that's the issue.
You can hear good enough to continue with the meeting?
Well, I can hear you clearly now, but Oh, they can't hear me in this room, but you can hear me in that room, apparently.
Okay. I will, Vanessa, I will keep an eye on your microphone over there if somebody steps up and wants to speak.
I kind of couldn't catch that. So I think we're sorting it out. The other microphone works in this room. I'm just going to have to talk into two mics at once, and I think that will do the trick.
Thank you. Okay, transfer station report. Tom McMahon from the Board of Health.
Hello. Good evening, Marblehead residents. My name is Tom McMahon. We wanted to give you a brief update on the progress of the transfer station project. We're in the final stages of the project and moving forward with the new design that the board voted on a little over a year ago. This would include rehabbing the existing compactor building, including the installation of a new compactor and attendance booth, building a new scale house, building a transaction hut in the residential trash and recycling area, and building a new swap shed. As many of you have read, there's been some issues with bidding and finding a general contractor for the project. However, we do have options in this area, which include actively reaching out to GCs for bids, as well as working with residents who are interested in taking an active role in the project's completion. One thing the completion of this project will have is complete transparency. This is something that many residents in town feel was lacking in the project up to this point. The remainder of the project will include progress provided at our meetings, as well as a form of accounting that tells a story through numbers rather than just listing expenses. This should include recording the estimated costs of different portions of the project, putting those against the actual costs, and when the estimated versus actual is out of tolerance, there will be an explanation provided. This design was not the original one sold to the town in 2011 and 2015. As many of you know, there were issues with the project, and in order to complete it without asking the town for additional funds to continue with the original plan, a lesser version was needed, which, among several things, did not include the sorting floor used for construction and demo. This sorting floor would allow our transfer station to continue to maximize revenue while keeping up with new Mass DEP regulations. There is, however, a plan to add a sorting floor in a different capacity at a future date. We will be conducting a feasibility study for that, and we'll come to the town with the results in order to get residents' approval to move forward. There's plenty more to come on that. Now, it's hard to move forward without addressing the past and what went wrong. I think this can be separated into two areas. One of those being unexpected issues that were found once ground was broken. A few months back, Andrew Petty made a very informative presentation which included many pictures of some of the unexpected issues that they ran into during the project, which led to increased costs. A recording of this can be found on the Health Department's website, and I encourage you to take a look. The second area is a little trickier. The town did go into litigation over the project, and a settlement was reached. Now, you don't go into litigation and reach a settlement unless something went wrong. To avoid the risk of jeopardizing that settlement, I think it's best to leave it at that. As we move forward, there needs to be accountability for the next portion of the project, and you're looking at it right here. If things aren't going as planned or promised, you can come directly to me for answers. On a different note, one thing that we need to address and brace the town for is the upcoming end to our favorable trash and recycling curbside pickup contract. We are still a few years away, but we do expect that the next contract will increase significantly. There isn't much anyone can do about that aside from shopping for the most favorable contract, but it will likely be significantly higher than what we have now. This also highlights why it's important to find ways to make our transfer station as profitable as possible in order to subsidize the increase in cost. This profit, however, is not intended to squeeze as much money as possible out of residents who use it. Our transfer station is a town utility. Because of that, we should aim to keep the costs to residents as low as possible. One way we can do that is by moving to a stickerless system that would keep out-of-towners from using our transfer station's trash and recycling area, leaving us to foot their bill. Another way is to subsidize our costs by charging more to our neighboring communities who come to use our transfer station's weigh and pay area, as well as charging them more for additional services like mattress disposal. We've already started finding ways to do that, and there are more to explore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. And the next update is on the 2022 capital improvements article that we had, Amy McHugh.
Hopefully this works. Maybe. As the Public Works Director, I'm happy to provide an update on capital projects funded by articles approved in past years. Article 10, 2021, double lines and crosswalks were remarked throughout town. Exhaust fans from the mechanic garages and Tower Way building have been purchased and installed. Electrical surveys and project recommendations of current and future electrical demands for the municipal garages has been completed. Article 11, 2022, public facilities projects. The DPW and Police Department roof replacements are 80% complete. Roads and sidewalks improvements, paved streets, Elm Street, Elm Place, Watson, Story Terrace, Rockaway Street, Wyman Road, Ocean Ave from Harbor Ave to Harbor Ave, Beacon Street from Mill Pond to Schooner Ridge, sidewalk improvements on Elm Street. Chapter 90 and grant funding have supported the road and sidewalk improvements. As far as a transportation plan is being developed, pavement, sidewalk, signal lights, and signage assessments have been completed. Regular utility coordination meetings have taken place with the pavement management plan driving upgrade projects for each of the utilities. A bike plan consultant has been chosen and work is beginning. The Village Street Bridge replacement design is underway. Article 11, 2023, public facilities and projects. The new DPW storage yard has been created on Tower Way. Upper garage floor at the DPW has been inspected and plans developed for the repair. The crew room has been demolished, the roof project to replace the ceiling and interior work is underway. ARPA funds. The new fuel station with the above ground tanks has been completed and the existing station and underground fuel tanks has been removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Before we go to the vote, I've been told that we've found a purse, and the name in the purse is O'Connor, and you could go up to the lobby and retrieve your purse. For Article 2, for those of you who favor Article 2, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. And the motion passes. Mr. Peck has a quick report to make.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Robert Peck, 22 Tidewinds Terrace. Once upon a time, rock and roll player, and I think there is feedback that's just throughout the stadium here. I'm wondering if this mic is too, this is not my report. Wondering if the mic is too loud. But I come to you as chairman of the retirement board, and on this particular night, I also come to you as the very proud father of attorney Vanessa Moody, who's in the gymnasium, following in her father's footsteps of donating volunteer time to serve the town of Marblehead. As I say every year, I try to be the briefest reporter here. We are required on the retirement board by state law to report to town meeting the time and the place and the date of our annual meeting to consider a cost of living increases for our town retirees. This year, it will be Tuesday, June 11th, 2024 at 3:30 p.m. at the Mary Alley Building, 7 Widger Road, lower level conference room. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Finance Committee report. Alec Goolsby, Chairman of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Alec Goolsby, 2 Bradley's Ends, Chair of the Finance Committee. Speaking on Article 2 tonight to introduce our Finance Committee, discuss some of the work and processes we have advised on over the past year, provide an update on the town's reserve fund we administer, and to remind everyone of our role at town meeting tonight. We currently have a full roster of 9 members, 8 of whom have been on the committee for multiple years, and 1 rookie. As chair, I am supported by vice chairs Pat Franklin and Molly Teets, as well as FinCom members Lindsay Doobie, Michael Janko, Eric Knight, Mike O'Neill, Tara Samuels, and Tim Schottmeyer. Our Finance Committee advises the town and town meeting on all financial matters. Our main responsibilities include the review and recommendation of the balanced budget included in Article 26. This long and detailed process represents 80 to 90% of our time spent and included the following steps this year. Establishing the budget calendar, which was finalized last August. Reviewing and advising on all draft department level budgets submitted to us through a series of public liaison meetings between November and March. Voting on each individual budget during department level budget hearings in March and April. Voting our recommendation on the town-wide balanced budget at the April warrant hearing. And finally, presenting the balanced budget at town meeting tonight. More to come on budget details when we get to Article 26. In addition to our budget responsibilities, we also make a recommendation on all other warrant articles with financial implications. These recommendations were voted by our committee at the warrant hearing last month. We make no recommendations on articles without financial implications. All of our recommendations are included in the Finance Committee report, generally with comments where applicable. We encourage you all to follow along in your FinCom books tonight and consider our recommendations as you vote. Lastly, we administer the town operating budget reserve fund. This is funded annually at $144,000 and is available to be drawn down at the request of departments as needed. As of tonight, we have approved 4 requests totaling $80,000 from the fiscal year 24 reserve fund, which leaves a balance of $64,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year ending June 30th. These requests include funds to support Council on Aging transportation services, police hiring expenses, assessor abatement and department review consulting, and ladder truck maintenance. A summary of the requests approved and balance of the reserve fund is included on page 6 of the Finance Committee report. We make our recommendations to town meeting based upon our own independent review of financial information presented to us. While we hope that our insight is a benefit to town meeting, and while we further believe that our recommendations are both thoughtful and thorough, it is ultimately up to town meeting to review what the proponents of the articles have presented, to weigh the arguments for and against each article, and to vote the most beneficial course of action for our town. There are many articles to review this year. Members of our committee will speak to some of these articles where we deem necessary. We appreciate the opportunity to serve the town and look forward to an engaging and productive town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. Article 3 is our first group of consent articles, and I'm going to handle it just like we do the budget. Article 3 has 5 sub-motions, and I'm going to read off each sub-motion and the title. If you'd like me to hold it for discussion, please do. Just yell out "hold," and we'll hold it, and then we'll vote on the ones that are not held. Sub-motion A is assume liability. Sub-motion B is accept trust property. Submotion C is leased town property. Submotion D is contracts in excess of 3 years. And submotion E is financial assistance for conservation. Whoever made the hold on contracts in excess of 3 years, would you like to come up to the microphone and ask your question?
Thank you. My name is Dorothy Foley. I'm at 19 Tough Street. I'm just wondering, I have to assume that this is applying to all contracts because it doesn't specify a subset of contracts. And my concern is that 10 years is an awfully long time. And 3 to 5 years would seem to me to be far more reasonable. But in the absence of that, I would urge either that this be separated and voted on separately, or that town residents would just think about whether it's a good idea to allow contracts that much in excess of 3 years. Thank you.
Thatcher Keyser with an answer.
Good evening. Thank you. Thatcher Keyser, Town Administrator. Happy to be back here a second year. To answer the question, this allowance is specifically for Chapter 30B, or goods and services procurements. Typically, it's limited to 3 years. It requires approval of the Select Board to go beyond the 3 years, and the only time we use it would be if it's advantageous price-wise, or for the service being rendered to go beyond the 3 years. So it is discretionary, but it's voted by the Select Board, and it's limited to goods and services, as we know it as Chapter 30B type procurements.
Jack, could the speakers in the pack stand a little bit closer to the mic so we can hear a little bit better over here, please?
Yes, when people do get up to speak, if you could step closer to the microphone in the aisles, that would be appreciated. Thank you. If you favor Article 3, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. And the motion carries. Article 4, unpaid accounts. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? I have a second. Alicia Benjamin, our Director of Finance.
Good evening, honorable residents. Tonight's Article 4 is by Massachusetts state law. It's Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64. So any prior year bills that we have, that we don't have a purchase order for, it has to be paid out of this current year with your vote. And you will see the bills tonight are from two departments, the school department and the finance department, and they total $23,633.49.
Jack, we've had a point of order called from the overflow room due to the audio issues.
Okay.
That was it.
So can you hear me?
We can hear you. It's the other microphones are a lot harder to hear. They're either too quiet or they're reverberating.
Can you do a test?
Test, test.
That's good.
Okay, so we're really going to have to step up to the microphones in this room, folks, and I'm going to keep in touch with Vanessa and make sure that the people in the gymnasium can hear. And I'm going to ask Alicia to state her report again, please.
Good evening. Article 4, unpaid accounts. This is under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64. This is an annual article that we have. It's for any prior year bills in which we do not have a purchase order that we must pay. It has to be paid out of current year funds, and in order to do that, it has to be approved by town meeting. The total is $23,633.49.
I just got a report that that was much better, so thank you. We're going to lean into the microphones tonight, folks. Article 4, unpaid accounts. If you favor Article 4, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 4. It's a vote and the motion carries. Article 5, departmental revolving funds. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Alicia Benjamin.
Good evening. This article in particular, it is under state statute again. It's Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2. It's for departmental revolving funds. These are not funded by taxation. These are funded by fees for their operation. What you are voting is their total cap. They can never go above what is in their fund balance. So each year what I do is I look at their submissions and what they have for fund balance and what they are going to project out for revenue before approving these caps. The other part of this article is an expansion on the use of the street opening revolving fund. They just added and making repairs to public ways and sidewalks and not just for various public roadways improvements.
Thank you, Alicia. As many as favor Article 5, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. It's a vote and the motion carries. It's really suspenseful, isn't it, watching the screen? But I think it's working. So far, so good. As long as we lean into our microphones, we're going to start moving right along here. Article 6, purchase of equipment of several departments. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Thatcher Keyser or Alicia Benjamin, please.
Good evening. Article 6 on capital equipment for this evening is $176,784. The difference between this year and last year is we used free cash for all one-time capital. We did not put it in the levy. So right now you will be voting $176,784 out of free cash to fund these fire, public safety crosswalk, mini-split AC units, Ford Escape for a building department, and a Ford Escape for inspections of the health department. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. We have a question?
I do. Dan Albert, 58 Leicester Road. Thank you, Alicia. I wanted to ask you about the RRFBs, the crosswalk beacons. FHWA, those range from $4,000 to $52,000. We paid the Clifton Improvement Association paid $4,000 for one recently on Atlantic Road. So maybe you or the chief or somebody could just explain to us where those are going. Are we talking about two crosswalks, one crosswalk, or what?
police chief will speak to that. Thank you.
Good evening, and Dan's right. The Clifton Improvement Association donated the funding for our first and only, the smaller size rapid flashing beacon. So the one at Seaview in Atlantic, that's what this represents. The larger ones at Mohawk and Pleasant, those are the ones that are the larger expenditures. They're $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. These are about $6,000 each. These will be determined by a bunch of criteria based on input traffic data that we're working on together as a town to figure out where they are. So this will purchase 3 of them.
Okay, as many as favor Article 6, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. We're getting faster with our votes. It's a vote, and the motion carries. Article 7, lease purchase, requires a 2/3 vote. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you very much. Alicia Benjamin.
Good evening again. Article 7, lease purchase, is under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 21C. And again, you will see that we did not use the tax levy, we used free cash. Oh. Oh, next. Yeah, lease purchase.
It's trying. Give it a minute.
As Article 7 is loading up on the screen, the total is $447,354. $421,275 is to be appropriated from free cash. $26,079 is to be transferred from the waste revolving fund. You'll see on each of the 3 capital articles that we do each year, we changed from the levy to free cash, as free cash should be used for one-time costs, as free cash is one time. It really should not be used for recurring expenses, so we're using free cash in the correct way.
Jack, we have a speaker in the overflow room. Pardon the interruption.
Thank you. Speaker in the overflow room.
Hi, Alexis Soul, Front Street. I have a question about, on this article and the previous one, it looks like a duplication of the motors for the boats. They're both $39,000.
I'm sorry, could you ask closer to the microphone so that we could hear you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Yeah, Alexis Soul, Front Street. I am looking at what's on the screen, and from number 5 and number 6, it looks like there's a duplication. There's safety boat motors for $39,000 on both of those.
Okay, bear with us. Can somebody just speak to that, please?
Good evening. I think she saw it because the lag in the screen time, it looks, when it's lagging, it probably looked the same, but it's not. It's not in Article 5, it is only in Article 6. Oh, and 7.
It's not in 7, it's in 6.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a public safety boat replacement, 2 outward motors she saw there. And then we split costs, let's see.
Vanessa, do you show Article 7 on your screen?
We're having some visual issues over here. I'm not sure if it's the same that you're having there. It was sort of two articles overlapping each other, and now we're not seeing anything, but it looks like you're not either.
We apologize, there's a lag when we're trying to change over from the different articles, so you may have to wait a minute before it actually pops on screen, so I was trying to talk in advance to it while it was loading.
We're working on a fix right now, folks.
These are in the Finance Committee reports. Do they have copies of Finance Committee reports in the overflow room?
Bear with us, folks. I thought this year was going to be easier. Oh, that's better. Folks, we're doing our best, and I really appreciate your patience. Folks, I will remind everybody that the articles that we're reviewing, unless I tell you that they've changed, are written in your Finance Committee report that you should have picked up out front. Does everybody have their Finance Committee report? Okay. It's a tool to follow along for sure. Article 7 is up on the screen. If you favor the article, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now.
Jack, we lost the visual again in here.
We have... Frank's on his way over.
Okay, thank you.
Vote has closed. That's not refreshing correctly. The audio-visual problem is also here. Oh, there it is.
It's a vote, and the motion carries. And we're going to hang tight. Vanessa, is your screen still out?
It's cloudy, so.
Okay. Somebody's on their way over.
Article 8 looks good.
Article 8 is up. Article 8 is not up here.
Okay, well, it's going to look
$100
good
bucks,
when we see it.
remember that? Bear with us, Vanessa.
Standing by, Jack. And when we do get to Article 8, we have a question in the overflow room after the presentation.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
We have a question on Article 8 when we do get to it after the overview.
Okay, once we put it up, yes.
Yes.
Hang tight. So am I going to have to start reading mine?
Yeah, I mean, otherwise we're going to be out. There it is. Let's go.
Okay, nobody move. Article 8, capital improvements for public buildings. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Okay. Alicia Benjamin, please.
Article 8, capital improvements for buildings. For tonight, it's 401,941, completely from free cash. It is for the village school fire panel upgrade, the Glover HVAC system, the veteran support beam structural repair, and public buildings entries and exits for the town.
Thank you, Alicia. We have a question in the gym.
Yes, hello, Mr. Moderator. This is Mark Adams of 15 Briar Lane. My question is, this article includes a line item for $218,000 for an HVAC system at the Glover School. Could we get some detail on what's included in that HVAC system? And if it includes natural gas or other fossil fuels for heating system, isn't that at odds with our town's stated goal of reaching net zero by 2040?
Yes, we'll get an answer for you. Sarah Fox, Chair of the School Committee.
Hi, yes, I apologize. We don't have our facilities director here with us tonight, but what I can tell you is it's a replacement of the existing system. Currently, we have periodically rooms that will have no heat or that's flagging me down, sorry. We've had throughout the year rooms that have had no heat at times or completely dysregulated heat, but it's replacing the current heat system.
Thank you.
We have another
we have a speaker over here, Mr. Gessner.
Gessner, 20 Gregory Street. The Glover School is fairly new, folks. And I wonder if we have some recourse to the provider of that equipment or the original equipment.
Sarah, do you want to try to address that? Sarah Fox?
The warranties that come with new construction usually expire after 1 to 2 years. We've been in the Glover School for about 10 now, so there would be no warranty in place currently.
Thank you.
We have another speaker in the overflow room.
Thank you, Vanessa. Speaker in the overflow room.
Good evening, Dale Smith, Fox Run Lane. I read an article about the abysmal state of the high school roof leaking. Is there any, I don't see anything here. Is that covered somewhere else?
Yes, that is covered by our borrowing. This is not a part. It's not a part of this article tonight for town meeting, but it has been previously voted as to be borrowed, and it has been borrowed.
Thank you. If you favor Article 8, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 8 is a vote, and the motion carries. Article 9, I'm going to read it. That the town raise and appropriate $50,000 for the construction and reconstruction of walls and fences for the protection of highways and property, including engineering services in connection therewith. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. That worked pretty good. Thatcher Keyser, Town Administrator.
Thank you. So this is annual appropriation for walls at the same amount, $50,000. This funding is coming from the levy as part of the operating budget, but it goes towards capital fixes for our walls and fences.
Thank you. If you favor Article 9, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. It's a vote, and the motion carries. Article 10, storm sewer construction, that the town raise and appropriate $400,000 for the construction, reconstruction, permitting, and maintenance of storm sewers for surface drainage purposes, including engineering services in connection therewith, and for general drain construction purposes, including the purchase or lease of equipment to be expended by the Department of Public Works. Amy McHugh, Director of Public Works. I'm sorry. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Amy McHugh.
Good evening. This is a standard article, and the money is appropriated from the tax levy. This covers the cost of the EPA Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Permit, the MS4 permit requirements, construction and maintenance of over 50 miles of piping, manholes, catch basins. We should do this without this. And to repair more than 80 outfalls throughout town. This article is even more critical as the coordination of street paving requires that all utilities complete required or planned upgrades before the street will be put on the list for full pavement projects. Examples of this drain work that will be needed are the lining of the corrugated drain piping down Humphrey and Tedesco streets. Projects that have been funded by previous articles for stormwater construction is the extension of Pleasant Street from Besson to Village and design for storm sewer extensions on West Shore Drive, Pequot, Maverick Street are some examples, and the design of the rehab for the Riverhead outfall.
Thank you, Amy. If you favor Article 10, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 10 is a vote, and the motion carries. I'm going to keep reading. Article 11, we have 3 more consent articles. Submotion A, Water Department, let's see here. Submotion A, Water Department construction. The $2,600,000 is appropriated from water retained earnings for the construction, reconstruction, permitting, and extending of water mains, replacement of water meters, appurtenances, engineering consultants, surveys, including revenue studies and other general water department purposes, and to authorize the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners to acquire by purchase, eminent domain, or other any land or easement necessary. Does anybody want to hold that? Submotion B, that the sum of $2,850,000 is appropriated from sewer retained earnings to be expended by the Water and Sewer Commission for the construction or reconstruction of sewers for sanitary purposes and for sewage disposal, pump stations, original pumping equipment, metering equipment, safety equipment, replacement of said equipment, engineering consultants and surveys, including revenue studies and other general sewer department purposes, and to authorize the Board of the Water and Sewer Commissioners to acquire by purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise any lands or necessary easements. Do I have a hold on that? And submotion C, Water and Sewer Commission claims that the town vote to authorize the Water and Sewer Commission and the Select Board acting jointly to compromise any claims for damages or suits pending against the town of Marblehead on account of acts which may have occurred during the construction of the water or sewer systems. Do I have anybody that wants to hold that? Okay.
Do you want the question?
Yes, please.
Albert Jordan. I just read an article, Salem.
I'm sorry, name and address.
Albert Jordan, Roosevelt Avenue. I heard you mentioned in replacing water meters. I'm just curious, I just read locally in the newspaper about Salem and Danvers buying water meters. We're not receiving our water meters from this company that they just had a problem with in Danvers and Salem, are we? Thank you.
Amy McHugh.
So our water meters are currently being purchased under a contract that was publicly bid, and it's with E.J. Prescott, and we have census meters. We will be putting it out to bid again. There will be a public process coming up. And as with all public bids, anyone who is a responsible bidder and has the lowest price will end up getting that. But right now we have census meters.
Okay, I'm just concerned that I don't know where Salem gets their meters in Danvers. They just fired two high-ranking people over in Danvers and Salem about water meters. I just want to make sure they're not using the same meters that we are, because there's something funny going on with the meters in those two North Shore communities. And I just want to make sure that we're not involved in that scandal. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Amy?
Just another short piece for this is that the source of funding is retained earnings from water and sewer collections from the previous fiscal year. The rates are reviewed each year at the rate study held in June. Rates are set to cover the operating and maintenance budget for this year for the FY25 budgets and cost projections for capital improvement plans that follow following fiscal year FY26. So anyone who has any questions about that, in June there's a whole public hearing. You can hear in detail how the whole process works.
Thank you, Amy. If you favor the article, if you favor Article 11, please use your green yes. Please use the green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 11 is a vote, and the motion carries. Article 12, proposed reclassification and pay schedule administrative to amend Chapter 121 of the bylaws, classification and wage salary plan by changing certain job titles where indicated and reclassify certain positions in the administrative pay schedule to strike out the pay schedule as it relates to administrative personnel, substitute in place thereof the new pay schedules, and to transfer from available funds and/or appropriate a sum of money to make said new pay schedules effective, or take any other action relative thereto to substitute in place thereof the following new pay schedule with a 2% COLA as it relates to said personnel. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Thank you. Select Board Member Brett Murray.
Good evening, Brett Murray, 7 Abbott Street, member of the Select Board. This is a standard article that is voted on every year that increases the non-union administrative personnel by 2%, which is consistent with other negotiated contracts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Those who favor Article 12, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. It's a lag in the system that we have, folks. The technology is working on the devices, so bear with us. I just saw the screen in the back. The votes are definitely counting out back, so it's the visual, it's not the technology. Please bear with me. Article 12 is a vote, and the motion carries. Oh. Can you see that, Vanessa, on the screen?
Yeah, we can see this one. It's just...
Like the shortest one has to show up, right? Okay, Article 13, proposed reclassification and pay schedule for traffic supervisors. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? We have a second. Select Board Member Alexa Singer.
Hi, welcome, and super excited that's working right now. Article 13 is to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 121 of the bylaws, classification and wage salary plan, by changing certain job titles where indicated and reclassify certain positions in the traffic supervisor's pay schedule, to waive the pay schedule as it relates to traffic supervisor personnel, substitute in place thereof the new pay schedules, and to transfer from the available funds and/or appropriate a sum of money to make said new pay schedules effective or take any other action relative thereof. This article is sponsored by the Select Board, and this is a standard 2% cost of living increase to support our crossing guards. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alexa. As many as favor Article 13, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. There we go. Article 13 is a vote, and the motion carries. Okay. Article 14, proposed reclassification and pay schedule, seasonal and temporary personnel. The motion is that the town amend Chapter 121 of the bylaws, classification and wage salary plan by changing certain job titles where indicated and reclassify certain positions in the seasonal and temporary personnel pay schedules, strike out the pay schedules as they relate to seasonal and temporary personnel, substitute in place thereof the new pay schedules, and to transfer from available funds and/or appropriate a sum of money to make said new pay schedule effective July 1st, 2024. I have a motion. It's so moved. Do I have a second? Thank you very much. Select Board Member Jim Nye.
Jim Nye, 67 Garfield Street.
rinse and repeat. This is another 2% cost of living increase for the temporary and seasonal workers that are outside of the union. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nye. If you favor Article 14, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. What's next? Article 14 is a vote, and the motion carries. Article 15, compensation of town officers. Motion is that the yearly compensation of the town officer named in this article be as follows. Town clerk, $90,337. Said amount to be in full compensation for services as town clerk. All fees received by the town clerk in her official capacity to be accounted for to the town revenue officer. That the town clerk, as elected and having served in that position or as a regular full-time employee for 5 consecutive years, and for each applicable additional 5 years on such basis, shall be paid longevity pay annually in addition to her weekly salary. It's been moved. Do I have a second? We have a second. Thatcher Keyser?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This position, it's the only one that's elected and full-time, and therefore it has its own warrant article, so it represents a 2% increase from the prior year.
Thank you. For those that favor Article 15, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 15 is a vote, and the motion carries. Oh, phew. Article 16, ratification of salary bylaw. The motion has been moved. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Thatcher Keyser, Town Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This article ratifies the actions of the Compensation Committee. Compensation Committee, under the bylaws, is currently made up of Town Administrator, myself, the Chief Financial Officer, and one other department head, Andrew Petty, from the Health and Waste Department that makes up this committee. When department heads are looking to make changes to job descriptions or creating new job descriptions, it goes through the Compensation Committee process. We follow a process created by a consultant, GovHR, that built a system 3-4 years ago in which either an update to a job description or a new job description, we run it through an evaluation of specified criteria. It gets a score set to it based on the criteria. For example, how much supervision does the position have, how much education is required, are there certifications, all those factors that create a point score, and based on the point score, it determines where on the salary scales that those positions fall. If it's a union position, we also
share or send that information to the union to get ratification on any changes to the union position as part of that process. So before you are 21 positions that were either a new job description or mostly updates to job descriptions. If you can read that, I'll dispense of reading. If somebody wants me to read the list, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Thatcher. If you are in favor of Article 16, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 16 is a vote, and the motion carries. Article 17 is always a joy to bring up. Article 17, Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School District. The motion is that the town approve the gross operating and maintenance budget of the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School District for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2025, and raise the appropriate sum of $468,057 for the town's assessment of the same to be expended by the school committee. Mark Strout, the article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Mark Strout, Marblehead representative to Essex Tech and chair of their school committee.
Hi, everybody. Mark Strout, 40 Maple Street, chairperson of the 20-member school committee for the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical High School. Now in our 11th year of operation, Essex Tech currently serves 1,746 students and offers 26 vocational, technical, and agricultural programs on our 165-acre Danvers campus. Tonight, I am most pleased to announce that of the 27 vocational technical schools serving the Commonwealth, Essex Tech is the second most affordable. I am also pleased to report tonight that for the 4th straight year in our school's history, that Marblehead will be assessed the state minimum required contribution as calculated by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. I am also pleased to announce that our administrative team this year secured over $7 million to date in competitive grants, and that our FY25 preliminary assessment to the town of Marblehead is $468,057, which is down from $468,762 last year. This year, 25 of our Marblehead students took advantage of the following career and technical education programs: arborists, biotechnology, carpentry, construction craft laborers, dental assisting, engineering, design and media communications, electrical, HVAC and refrigeration, information technology services, landscaping and turf management, and veterinary sciences. I'd like to thank the Marblehead business owners who have employed our students in their co-op positions this year and in the past. Marblehead Animal Hospital, Smile Design and Family Dentistry, Atlantic Veterinary Clinic, Bartlett and Stedman Plumbing, Whitmore Brothers Construction, Brenton Gray Development, Simpson Garden Design, Gilbert and Cole Building Supply, Herlihy Electric, MRW Mechanical, Eat Well Kitchen, Mark H. Driscoll Construction, and Shuby's Marketplace. I'd also like to give a huge shout out to our carpentry and electrical students who this year continued their work on the renovation of the Stramsky House off of West Shore Drive. Our goal is to strive to be the finest vocational technical agricultural high school in the Commonwealth. Therefore, our Marblehead students and their families and the staff of Essex North Shore would greatly appreciate your support on this article, and we thank you for your continued support over the years.
Always a great report. Thank you, Mark. We have a speaker.
Hi, Jack. Linda Rice Collins, 2 Hibbard Road, Recreation Park Commissioner, Vice Chair. I would like to thank the Essex Folk Tech teachers and students for their hard work on the Stramsky House project here in Marblehead. The programs at Essex Folk Tech have done a tremendous job preparing the students in their given field. Please support Article 17.
Thank you. One correction on this motion is that the date is July 1st, 2024, which is when the funding commences. If you favor Article 17, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 17 is a vote, and the motion passes. Article 18, transfer funds to special education stabilization account. I have a motion for indefinite postponement. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. If you favor Article 18, please use for indefinite postponement. Please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 18 is a vote, and the motion passes. Article 19. Oh. Vanessa, do you see it on the screen?
We do, yes.
Oh, wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank Perez. No pressure, Frank. Article 19, available funds appropriated to reduce the tax rate. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Patrick Keyser.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I thought it was the way I was pushing the button was causing the problem. Thankfully not. Article 19 is for the use of available funds to reduce the tax rate, or as we know it, of utilizing free cash primarily to subsidize the operating budget with a additional amount of $330,000 from the municipal electric surplus in order to reduce the amount of tax levy. As you all probably know, that in Marblehead, that the operating budget has been highly reliant on using free cash. 2 years ago, it was on the order of $10.4 million in order to subsidize the budget. Our free cash, the expectation, we're seeing it, the free cash amounts that are being generated are decreasing over time, as well as, from a policy sense, as a good fiscal policy sense, is to get the town off of using free cash for its operating budget, its annual budget. Free cash is considered a one-time source of funds. You cannot guarantee that you will have it from year to year. So we try to get away from relying on that one-time revenue source to maintain annual operational expenses. We are making great progress on that. Again, in the last 2 years, we went from 10.4 to subsidize the budget down to 8 last year, and we are down to 5.5 million in the operating budget. What we're also doing is, rather than using the entirety of free cash, to supplement the budget. Moving free cash or keeping the free cash balances in the free cash account, which is considered an unrestricted reserve. The policy adopted by the Select Board is to be at least 5% of operating budget. With this amount, with the amount that we're moving for this year, we're about 2.5% there. We are making progress to meeting our free cash reserve goals, and at the same time, meeting our goals to reduce the level of free cash being used in the budget. And this has a major implication for borrowing costs, our bond rating, and so forth. So on this article, we're looking to approval to use 5.5. Again, a great reduction from the prior years, plus $330,000 for a total of $5,830,000 of funds to reduce the levy.
Jack, we have a speaker in the overflow room.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Mr. Keiser. Your first speaker could step to the mic.
Alexis Soul, 110 Front. This, if I understand correctly, is this not analogous to using your savings for your current expenses? And this seems really unwise to me, that we need to keep reserve funds, not be spending them. And nobody wants more taxes, but, you know, if you want the services, you got to pay.
Thank you. Mr. Keiser.
Yes, so that is an excellent point, and again, we're trying to move our way off of using the free cash, the savings, if you want to label it that way. To do that all in 1 year would decimate us, but what we are doing, we certified 8.7 million in certified free cash, so we're applying 5.5 towards the budget, again, reducing it. Using $1 million to supplement for capital programs, which is the appropriate use of free cash. Again, one-time revenue matching with one-time capital expenses. And then the balance going in and remaining in the free cash reserve account, which is the savings account. And we're actually building that up over the last several years. So we're up over $2 million in that reserve with approval of this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. Vanessa, I see you have another speaker there, but we're going to take one more here in the pack. Sir?
She's actually on deck for the next article, so.
Oh.
Lee Street.
I'm sorry, could you say your name again, sir?
David Patton, 25 Lee Street.
Thank you.
How is this free cash invested, and what kind of return do we get on that?
Alicia Benjamin.
Good evening. Free cash is invested with the rest of the general pooled funds, and they're receiving between 4 to 5%.
Thank you. To your speaker, Vanessa?
No, she's waiting for Article 20.
Oh, okay. As many as favor Article 19, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 19 is a vote, and the motion passes. Article 20, collective bargaining police. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. I'm sorry, and the motion is for indefinite postponement. If you favor the article, please use your green yes button.
Say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Sorry, my apologies. Speaker in the gym.
Terry Toro, 113 Jersey Street. If I may, Mr. Moderator, before I comment on Article 20, I'd like to point out that in Articles 12, 13, and 14, it says position is equal to that provided for in the union contract. The union contracts have not been settled, so that really should be clarified. 2% is not equal to what is provided in the union contract. On behalf of Article 20, I would like to start with a shout out for our town employees. Marblehead's town employees educate your children and keep them safe. We keep your power on, plow the snow, and care for your aging parents. We make your summers on the harbor, at the parks, and take away your refuse. We affect your life in so many ways, every day. For many of us, the wages we make working for the town are far less than it would take to actually live in the town. It may soon be that our wages won't cover living in the state. Massachusetts is, after all, the fourth most expensive state in this country to live.
Point of order by the...
Hold on 1 sec. I don't have a microphone? Oh, there we go. I hate it when I get this from Greg Dana. Ms. Chor, we are only debating whether this is to be indefinite postponed or not. We're not debating an article.
The people, the union members in the room would like to hear me. I would like to finish my statement, please. It will only take a minute.
You need to be in order of the motion. I'm sorry. And as much as I know a lot of people would like to hear what you have to say, we're only debating indefinite postponement right now. We're not debating the collective bargaining process.
I'm not debating that either. I'm just making a statement about our town employees and how valuable they are. I would like to continue, please. It will only take a minute.
No, I'm sorry, you're out of order. But thank you. And I'm sorry, because I do know a lot of people would like to hear it, but it's just not the time and place. We need to keep order with regards to a process, and that's what we're doing. So thank you for your support. As many as favor Article 20, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 20 is a vote, and the motion passes. Seems like we got our technology game back on, which is nice. Article 21, collective bargaining, IUE, CWA Local 1776, another motion for indefinite postponement. This motion has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. As many as favor the article, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 21 is a vote, and the motion passes. Article 22, CPI increased for qualified seniors. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Alicia Benjamin.
Good evening. Article 22 is to change the minimum amount for your income and your assets to qualify for the senior exemption. Currently, it is at $40,000 if single for assets, $50,000 for married. And gross receipts from income cannot exceed $20,000 for a single or $30,000 for a married couple, which you can understand is extremely low. By passing this, those amounts will get increased by the CPI determined by the Department of Revenue every year. And as that base grows, every year it will go up. So if they voted 7% this year on your $40,000 and on the $50,000, you would be at $42,008 and $53,500. That would be your base for the next year, and then whatever the CPI is at that time, that would grow. Well, why would we want to do this? We want to do this to help the seniors, to expand the ability to get help with your taxes. Staying at this low rate for a very, very long time, not many seniors would be able to reach it. But by increasing this, and many towns have done this, by the CPI, it expands it so that more seniors can qualify for this important exemption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you favor Article 22, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 22 is a vote, and the motion carries. Article 23, great. Senior Tax Work-Off Program. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Alicia Benjamin.
Good evening. With the acceptance of this under General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5K, it would approve for a person who's physically unable to work to provide such services by having a representative work for them so that they could enjoy the senior tax work-off abatement. In addition to that, the $750 has been the limit for many years. We're going to increase that limit to $2,000, which was just passed by the governor this past January to help our senior population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sounds like you put your kids to work, right? I like that. As many as favor Article 23, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Next meeting. Article 23 is a vote, and the motion passes. Article 24, adopt local meals tax. The article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Thatcher Keyser.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This article and the next article are articles we propose to start addressing revenue for the town. Over the last several years, as we talk about the budget challenges and the attempts to do a property tax general override in order to bring revenues up to meet our expense challenges for maintaining services. We were looking for other alternatives than just relying on the property tax, especially trying not to rely on overrides. So this is our effort to do so. This first one would, if passed, would allow Marblehead to adopt the General Law, Chapter 64L, Section 2A, which would impose a local meals excise tax. So currently, you go to a restaurant and purchase a meal, you are imposed a state tax for meals that's imposed. What this would do is, by adoption, would allow a 0.75 additional charge on the meal, and that 0.75, it would be collected by the state, goes to the state, and then once a quarter, they would send down the revenues that are generated based on that revenue. So the calculations, if you have a $20 lunch, it'll be 14 cents added to the cost. If you have a nice $100 meal, it'll be 75 cents added to the cost of your meal. We estimate that it'll generate $400,000 to $600,000 in additional revenues. We, for this fiscal year, are only building in a portion of that. We want to be very conservative on our approach on the revenues. But again, if this is adopted, it would allow us to add a local meals tax on top of the state tax for our revenues. And if you look on the slide, every other community around us has already adopted this, and many have adopted this some time ago. So one of the factors that we looked at in considering this is, would this put our businesses at a competitive disadvantage by imposing this? And our sense is it would not, because all the other surrounding communities have already implemented this. So we would just be on par with what the rest of the region is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a speaker up here, please.
No, that's for the next one.
Oh, okay. We have a speaker over here, please. Name and address.
Albert Jordan, Roosevelt Avenue, 64. We've missed the boat on this a long time. They're doing this all over the North Shore. Marblehead needs more revenue, and we should have done this a long time ago, and I hope you support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Another speaker over here, please.
Yes, Jonathan Letterman, Ida Road. I'm actually here to oppose both Article 24 and 25 because collectively they'll raise about $1 million. Article 24 is a meals tax on all of us. Every time your child goes downtown or on a half day to Minos or Vesuvius, every time anyone goes anywhere, including Dunkin' Donuts or any other place in town like Crosby's to get takeout, you're going to tack yet another tax on their takeout foods. Why are we doing this? Because we can? Because other towns do it too? No, it's because management in this town can't get its fiscal house in order. Article 25 is a hospital. Article 25, like 24...
Excuse me.
Sorry.
You can talk about 25 when we bring that up. Thank you.
I know I'm not alone in my frustration in seeing the town try to find ways to get around Prop 2.5. But, you know, for Marblehead's entire history, we've been a small business-friendly town. There are no big businesses in town, so why are we proposing a new tax on small businesses? Now, I know that any time an opponent gets up, the Finance Committee, and I heard Thatcher say, hey, we're looking for ways to raise money, so what are we going to do? How are we going to close the budget? So I'll tell you how. I'll bet you most of the people in this room, I know that one of the people who spoke about the free cash, asked how it was invested, don't know that at any given moment, Marblehead has about $100 million in cash sitting in its reserves available to spend. As of April 16th, 24, the town had $95 million in cash. Would anyone try to guess what interest rate it's getting on those funds? I heard Alicia talk between 4% and 5%, so I actually took a look closely at those numbers. We are failing to invest those funds prudently, and we're losing about $1.1 million a year because we don't put our money in bank accounts that earn the interest rates we could be earning. Now, all municipalities in Massachusetts invest in Massachusetts Municipal Deposit Trust Company, which today's interest rate was offering 5.5% on daily, next day available funds, no risk. So the question is, why are we investing our money at 4%? When you add it all up, we have about $75 million that isn't earning that maximum rate. So let's start by investing our cash that we have in our town and earning the right interest rate. And no one is saying we pull our money out of our existing banks. We just should, when you have $100 million to invest, you should be able to go to banks and say, look, give us a deal that any fiduciary would expect when they're investing $100 million. The other thing we can do is we can stop paying employees who are fired for incompetence when they aren't working anymore. We seem to have a real habit. We have a real habit in Marblehead of doing that. So anyway, I'll conclude by saying we have 4 heroic staff at Glover who risked their careers doing the right thing to protect our kids and our staff and the people in their school, and they were terminated unfairly. And so when you want to look at how do you save money, you just use common sense, good business practices, and you don't raise taxes and nickel and dime the taxpayers. So I urge a no vote on Article 24. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Benjamin?
So I'd like to respond back to some of that. So yes, it is true we get between 4 and 5%. A lot before that, we had a lot of turnover in the treasurer's office. I'm very confident right now. We have the treasurer constantly calling banks and communicating on the different rates. In addition to that, we are statutorily run. We are not an investment firm. We are not trying to maximize funds. That is not our job. Our job is to use those funds for operations. We do hold trust funds and a fiduciary responsibility, but the $90 million you're talking about When we're collecting funds, maybe at a point in time, we're using that money every single week. We have a payroll. Every single week we have a warrant to pay. We cannot lock up funds. Secondly, on top of that, we need to distribute the money according to statute. We can't put all money into one place because that's the highest rate. So what the select board did when they adopted our financial policies is they followed what is the best way we should pursue our investments per the state. In addition to doing that, we have analyzed, we've looked closely at our investments. I've been working closely with the treasurer. And just to point out one thing recently, we went out to do a bond anticipation note, and I was quoted we were going to have to pay 5%. I went forward and told them what we're doing, how we changed our policies, how we have an adopted formal financial policy, how we put our savings now, our reserves in free cash, how we've cut our free cash usage in half, and we came back at 4%. So I thank you, Marblehead.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Benjamin.
So I would follow that up and say that, you know, the reality is we're not...
Wait a minute, I'm recognizing a speaker, folks. So we're going to let Mr. Letterman speak through me.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. I would just like to comment that I disagree with it. The town was informed in 2022 that it wasn't investing its cash properly. So here we are, a year and a half later, or maybe a little longer than that, and we're minus $1 million, and we're looking for 2 articles to tax small business, you know, hospitality, food. It's just not right. And instead of doing it straight by asking for money at the polls, we're doing it by nickel and diming people. I just don't think that's right.
Okay, Ms. Benjamin's going to have the last word. Thank you. Yep.
My final response to the gentleman, just so you're aware, before we had a permanent treasurer in here and we had constant turnover, we were receiving investment income at $60,000. Last year I collected $1.5 million.
Thank you, Ms. Benjamin. If you favor Article 24, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. 30-second voting starts now. Article 24 is a vote and the motion passes. I want to take a quick second, folks. You're getting really good with the electronic voting. What do you say we go down to 20 seconds? Okay. Okay, hold on one sec. Peter says we're good, so we're going to go down to 20 seconds. I've got 30 seconds written on every article, so you might have to keep me honest here. And Article 25, I'm going to let everybody know up front that I'm going to introduce the main motion, and there is a subsidiary motion, an amendment to that motion that will be heard first that I've received before the meeting. So I'm going to read Article 25 is to adopt a local rooms tax, and the article has been moved. Do I have a second? Thank you. Now I have a subsidiary motion, which is a motion to amend. And the motion is to amend the main motion to change 6% to 4%, and that is amended by Carolyn Pyburn. We hear the amendment first, so if Ms. Pyburn is here.
She's in the overflow room, or she's right
Thank
there.
you very much. Go right on ahead. Name and address for the audience, please.
Hi, Carolyn Pyburn, 11 Gilbert Heights Road. Marblehead has been contemplating the adoption of a room occupancy tax for years, and while the idea of generating revenue for the town through this tax might seem appealing, there are several reasons why this has not gone through in years past. Marblehead only has 2 hotels in town, yet it also has over 200 short-term rentals. These 2 hotels, which only come up to about 32 rooms, are the only public licensed lodging properties in the town that pay the permit and inspection fees. They also pay for staffing, insurance, workman's comp, marketing, etc. There's no budget from the town to market Marblehead beyond our town borders, so that is essentially left to the 2 hotels. All while these 2 businesses are left to also compete against over 200 short-term rentals that pay no registration fees, have no inspections or regulations. We are already at a disadvantage, and yet Marblehead now wants to impose a tax to the max amount that they legally can that will overnight more than double our guest taxes. So right now, if you book a room in Marblehead, you'll be paying 5.7% state tax. Overnight, it'll become 11.7%. That's a really big jump. Marblehead argues that surrounding towns all have this tax set up in place, but surrounding towns like Swampscott and Nahant have regulations and committees to enforce and manage the program. In Nahant, they have a short-term rental committee that is comprised of 1 building inspector, 1 health agent, 1 planning board member, and 2 town administrative appointed citizens. In Salem, to operate a short-term rental, you have to register with the city and pay a fee, get inspected yearly to get a certificate of fitness. You can also only operate a short-term rental if it is your primary residence. Marblehead has seen a surge in short-term rental properties in recent years. While this has boosted the local economy and provided additional income for homeowners, it has also raised concerns about the impact on the community. One specific concern is the impact on housing availability for residents, as more and more properties are being converted into short-term rentals. This is where regulations on short-term rentals come in. By implementing regulations, local officials can ensure that rental properties are being operated safely and responsibly, and that the needs of the community are being taken into account. This is particularly important if the town wants to impose a high room occupancy tax on these properties. The high tax rate would provide a significant source of revenue for the town, but it also raises the question of fairness. If short-term rentals are being taxed at a higher rate, it's only reasonable to expect that they be held to a higher standard as well. This means ensuring that the properties meet certain safety and health standards, that they are not disrupting the peace and quiet of the neighborhood, and that they are not being used as party houses or for any other inappropriate activities. In addition, regulations can help to address concerns about housing availability for residents. By limiting the number of short-term rentals in the town, officials can ensure that there are still enough affordable housing options for locals. This is especially important in a town like Marblehead, where housing prices are already high. Overall, while short-term rentals can be a valuable source of income for homeowners and a boost to the local economy, it's important to ensure that they are being operated responsibly and in a way that benefits the community as a whole. Regulations on short-term rentals can help to achieve this goal, particularly if the town wants to impose an occupancy tax. Right now, there's no set plan for any kind of regulations on them, just a promise that this revenue collected will help create a new position that will eventually oversee a plan to do so in the future. The town does very little to support tourism, to the point where there's not even public bathrooms open in the winter. Yet they want to charge tourism to take care of their deficits. We're in constant competition with larger towns around us, especially the notoriety of Salem and Gloucester, as well as the convenience of Peabody and Danvers being right off a highway. So if you don't think that a 6% tax on an overnight stay will be further disadvantage in trying to entice people to come here, then you are mistaken. We are not naive in thinking this tax won't one day be implemented in this town, but I argue that it should not be implemented this way. Until you can make sure that all lodging rentals in town can be regulated fairly, then the max occupancy tax should not be allowed to be implemented across the board. We'd like to amend the present article to add that the tax levied be presently no more than 4%, which matches the same amount charged in our neighboring towns of Swampscott and Lynn. And this way we'll still collect considerable revenue, but keep us competitive with local towns and help our economy in the long run.
Excuse me, Ms. Pyburn, are you getting close?
What?
Hello?
Yes.
Ms. Pyburn, are you getting close to finishing?
I'm done. Wasn't that? I thought that was obvious.
Are you close to finishing? Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Do we have a speaker over here, please?
Rebecca Bennett, 11 Cottage Street. There's different kinds of short-term rentals. In my neighborhood, which is just off Atlantic Avenue near CVS, some people just own houses and they're constantly, it's just all a short-term rental. And then I bought a house where it's a legal two-family so that I could have income when I was older. And I know a lot of older people in the town rent parts of their houses. So as we go forward with this tax, I'm glad it's down to 4%. But as we go forward with it, maybe we could consider that if someone's renting part of their house, it might be taxed less than if somebody's just running a short-term rental. A building that they own, but they just bought it for a short-term rental.
Thank you. This microphone over here, please.
Yes, David Patton, 25 Lee Street. I just wanted to ask, to the point that the woman before was speaking to, how is this going to be administered, and how is this going to be regulated, and how is it going to be collected?
Mr. Keiser?
The state collects it on our behalf, so they're the ones that, as it goes through the hotels and the different lodgings, if you're doing the short-term rentals, just like you pay your regular taxes, now you would have another fee, and we just alert the state after it passes. Once the state is aware, the state collects it on our behalf and then remits it to us quarterly.
Jack, we have a couple of speakers.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hold on one sec. Right over here, please.
Albert Jordan, 64 Roosevelt Avenue. This is another no-brainer. There's 351 communities in Massachusetts. Most of them are doing this. I don't want to be subsidizing these businesses. They need to pay their fair share. They're bringing people into town that are spending money here, and let them spend some taxes. Go to Boston and stay there and see what you're paying there. So this is a beautiful community. Let's let the people come help support us to keep it the community that it is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Could we go to the gym? Name and address, please.
William Eyre, 5 Cornell Road. I admit that my knowledge on this subject is somewhat limited, but to me, it seems as though, in specific reference to the previous lady, the First Lady's comment on the lack of regulations, it seems to me that a lack of regulations is dangerous on a number of levels. I understand, of course, the desire for people, especially elderly people, to be able to raise funds in an increasingly expensive world that we live in. However, a lack of regulations also means a lack of protection, not just for the people who are staying in the property, but for the people who are letting them stay there. Because if you have no rules to follow, you cannot prove that you followed them. And that means that you have significantly less protection under the law.
Thank you. Do you have one more speaker? This is on the amendment of, the discussion is about changing the main motion from 6% to 4%.
Hi, Carolyn Pyburn at 11 Gilbert Heights Road again. A question about when it was proposed, it was that it was going to be implemented starting July 1st. I haven't received any word of how that will happen, because I would think that for the hotels and all the short-term rentals, if you have bookings for the summer and fall, that you can't just go to someone who's already booked and tell them they now owe this tax. And I wouldn't think it would be fair for the businesses or the homeowners to then have to pay that tax. So I don't know how, we didn't get answers on that either.
Thank you. Yes.
So in regard to the last question, yeah, we checked into that. So as soon as we give notification, it would initiate the next quarter. So if we pass it tonight, we would notify the state it would start July 1. We are looking to, one, make sure this is applied fairly to all the different categories of short-term rentals, one uniform rate. We want to, one of the main reasons we're doing this, of looking for these other revenues, is so that we can minimize increases in the property taxes going forward. And as I said to the businesses that we met with, if we can generate these other revenues that are paid for by the guests and the visitors, the less we have to increase taxes, which would go directly to the homeowners and these businesses. So if you do the math, and if it goes directly to the businesses, it would come from their bottom line of the business and would not be a pass-through. So So this is a pass-through tax. And anyone who has gone to a hotel, stayed at a hotel, knows that they choose based on the rates of the hotels, and then they're going to accept whatever the taxes are for where they're staying. And as the previous gentleman said, going to Boston or other places, it's much more expensive. We're trying to generate these revenues that have the least impact directly on the taxpayers, to generate revenues in order to minimize our need for property tax increases, which will hit the businesses. Marblehead has a single tax rate, so it's an equal rate across the board. So if we do a tax override and a business, which is evaluated based on its income generation, determines its value, it's a bigger impact on the commercial side than it is on the residential side. So this is a balanced approach. We think a reasonable approach to meet our challenges going forward here in Marblehead.
Thank you. And I'm going to go back to the gym. I'm going to start using a 2-minute clock. And I need to remind everybody that we are, I'm allowing a little bit of latitude because it's so close to the main motion, but right now the conversation is about changing the main motion from 6% to 4%. Back to the gym with your name and address for the audience, please.
Hello, Cameron Wolfson, 16 Road. In the Finance Committee report, it says that if the local rooms tax is not accepted, town and schools will each need to cut $100,000 from their budgets. My question is, how would changing from 6% to 4% affect that?
Hold on one quick second. We're looking for an answer. Hold on one sec. This is conversation to get an answer, folks, so bear with us.
So we've done the calculations. We just got to pull it up on the math of what the difference is for each percent.
I'm going to go to the next speaker while we pull this information up to the gym. Mr. Conway, your name and address for the audience, please.
Peter Conway, 53 Orchard Street. The Hatcher said something about if this goes through, it would go into effect on July 1st. Most properties, certainly the two hotels in town, are already booked for the summer, most of it. So where do you come up with that tax from July 1st forward? You can't go back to the guests who have made a contract with you. So I would think, to be fair, that this would have to be put off until at least the fall to give these businesses a chance to reach out to people who are even now booking for the fall, to tell them that there will be a higher tax. But to go back to people who have booked in July and August is going to be a real problem when people consider they've made a contract. And so that's a major concern. The other one is these towns around us who have implemented the tax have committees that have created rules and regulations first, not second. So to go through with this when we don't really even have a governing body to oversee it, how's the money going to be spent? How much is going to be charged? Are there going to be any regulations on numbers of units? Things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Thatcher, to answer the previous question.
So as far as the implementation, so it's at the time of the transaction. So guests may have booked, it's when they cash out, out process, it's at that time because it's, again, it's piggybacking on what the state is already doing. So it's based on the transaction. So even though they book now, if they're staying the last week of July, when they check out and pay that transaction, that's when the tax is imposed.
Could we get...
Secondly,
Yep,
to the previous question, it's as far as I think it was like, what would be the cuts if we don't fully implement 6%? It would be $33,000 on the town side and $33,000 on the school side that we would have to reduce our budgets to make up the difference of the 4% to the 6%.
Thank you very much. We're going to do one more speaker, or we'll do two more speakers, but before that, I'm going to say there's no yelling instructions from the audience, please. Over here.
Alistair Connor, 9 Cloutmans Lane. Regardless of if the percent goes from 6% down to 4%, I just wanted to correct some inaccuracies. Yes, the hotels do work really hard to bring people in, but also if you have an Airbnb or a VRBO, you pay pretty much it doubles the cost of the rental in fees that you're paying and the person's paying that's booking. And so as far as these being pass-through taxes, eventually it does affect the rate because you can't outpace the rate. So we are, as Airbnb and VRBO renters, trying to bring people in and get that publicity, also paying the same, extra fees to bring people to Marblehead. And also, we did earlier vote to reduce property taxes, but now we're saying that if people are trying to supplement their property taxes, that they should have to pay extra fees. And I just think that that's not a pass-through invisible fee. You see it when you book, you realize it's too expensive, and then homeowners are forced to reduce those rates, as are the hotels.
Thank you. One more speaker here in the aisle.
Yes, hi. Cheryl Patton of Lee Street. You're incorrect, I'm afraid, about how the taxes would be processed for summer and fall rentals. Once the contract is made with a tenant, they pay 50% up front, and then they are completely paid at the time of check-in. There is no checkout fee. So everything is already processed before they even appear at the rental. So it would be a burden on anybody who has a short-term rental. They would then be responsible for picking up these taxes because the renter is already paid in full when the booking is made.
Thank you.
At a minimum, particularly since summer bookings are already done and many fall bookings are done because New England in the fall and Salem up the road, those places are already done. So your timing is really off and you're putting an undue burden on the people who are actually renting the property.
Thank you.
So what I was describing is my experience of hotels is when you check out. And so this information was from the state as to when the charge, so it's when they pay. So if folks have already booked and paid some transaction prior, then my understanding from the instructions from the state, they would not be imposed this new fee. It would be only those prospective that make their payment transaction in the time frame that the fee is implemented. So I think it's just a difference in how the transactions are done. Let me add another point in regard to regulations and enforcement. So Marblehead has over 8,000 households. There is somewhere around the order of 261 of the short-term rentals, the Airbnbs and such, currently in Marblehead that are registered. One of the things we're doing that's in the budget is actually plussing up our inspectional services department. Why? So that we have an additional local inspector out, eyes and ears. One of the feedback I got from folks was those short-term rentals that are not on the radar screen, that are not paying any taxes. So in regard to the regulations and enforcement and making sure that these things are managed properly, we are doing some things on the operational side to beef up our inspectional services to better have the workforce to be able to do those things. So happy to work forward on these. Again, the issue we're trying to address is identifying revenue sources to minimize the need for the property tax increases as we go forward. So it's a balance between those two efforts that we're trying to achieve, and that's why we proposed the 6% rate.
Thank you, but we're going to go to the vote, as promised. One quick clarification.
Yes, I just want to make sure, since you had a misunderstanding about when the state was going to implement, that if in fact, with a short-term rental as opposed to a hotel, since their pricing is done differently and the payout is done differently, that if in fact a short-term rental gets these taxes imposed after a tenant has checked out, that who's going to pay that? You or me?
So I'm pretty clear on how the
Real
state
quick,
handles,
Mr. Keiser.
Yeah, I'm pretty clear on how the state handles the transaction. What I'm unsure of, experience of how Airbnb guests and such, when they do their transactions relative to when they do the rentals. But from the state perspective and how the mechanism works, once we implement, if it was voted tonight, and we notify as of July 1st, whatever payments are made from that date forward would have that additional local tax in addition to the state tax. So that's pretty clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, so we're going to vote on the motion to amend first. If you vote in favor, then you are voting to change the 6% in the main motion to 4%. And either way, we end up going back to the main motion and voting it, whether it has 4 or 6% in it. So I'm sorry, can you go to the microphone, please?
Per town meeting time, I believe if the amended motion carries, the primary motion dies on the table. So if you want to be able to go back to 6%, you would want to vote no on this. I'm not weighing in on what you vote, I'm just telling you.
No, but thank you for bringing that up. So if you favor the amendment, the motion to amend, use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. You now have 20 seconds to vote starting now. It's crazy. How can you amend something and then kill it? You're amending. Oh, I can't say, is it 391?
The amendment fails.
No. So the amendment fails. So now, that was a close one. The suspense, I can't see that far though. You guys are killing me. So now, Article 24 has been moved and seconded. If you favor Article 24? No, 25. I'm sorry. Article 25. Sorry, yep.
At 6%.
Thank you. Then you can instruct from the audience. Article 25, adopt local rooms tax. If you favor Article 25, please use your green yes button. If you oppose, use the red no button. You now have 20 seconds to vote starting now. Article 25 passes. Okay, Article 26. This is the budget where we're going to handle over $115 million worth of the town's money. And this process works a little bit like we did the consent articles. Where is... So Article 26 has been moved. Do we have a second? Thank you. And I'd like to, before I get into how we're going to vote, I'm going to have the chair of the Finance Committee, Alec Goolsby, come up and give his report.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Alec Goolsby to Bradley's End, Chair.
Excuse me, Alec. Folks, could you have a seat and please stop the chatter? Thank you. Alec, go ahead.
Alec Goolsby to Bradley's End, Chair of the Finance Committee. As noted when I spoke on Article 2, the process that leads up to the balanced budget presented in Article 26 captures 80 to 90% of our committee's time and efforts annually. We already discussed the steps we went through to get here from a process perspective. Now I'd like to discuss some of the finer details surrounding this year's budget and the overall financial condition of our town. The official budget cycle began when our town finance director and town administrator presented the revenue forecast to both the select board and finance committee in separate independent meetings. The revenue forecast for fiscal year 25 is $1.5 million above the forecasted revenues included in last year's balanced operating budget. That's a 1.5% increase in available revenue to fund operating expenses year over year. The $1.5 million was divided between the town side budgets at $500,000 and the school budget at $1 million. These increases represent an approximate 1% and 2% increase in the town side and school department general fund budgets, respectively. Some key assumptions made in determining the available revenues include the following. The tax levy increased by approximately 3%, which includes the max allowed 2.5% increase under Proposition 2.5, plus an estimated 0.5% in new growth. A new category of local receipts of $400,000 is included in the balanced budget presented, which assumed the local meals and room taxes in Article 24 and 25 were accepted by town meeting, which just happened. Had these articles not passed earlier tonight, expense budgets would have needed to be reduced by this $400K. As noted previously, this represents a conservative estimate. Based on state data, annual revenue for these local receipts could be closer to $800,000 annually moving forward. Net state aid effectively remains flat. The amount of free cash utilized to offset the operating budget has been reduced by $2.5 million compared to last year. This reduction can be attributed to two main reasons. First, a lower amount of certified free cash is available this year. And second, the town is actively striving to achieve its objective of setting aside 5% of the operating budget in reserves each year. As of the beginning of fiscal year 25, the reserves will constitute around 2.5% of the operating budget. Once revenue projections were finalized, town leadership worked closely with department heads to prepare and finalize individual budgets that collectively roll up to the balanced budget presented in Article 26. As communicated by our committee in recent years, the cost of providing level services continues to outpace the increase in available revenues. This creates a significant challenge for all departments. In order for this year's budget to balance, certain departments needed to reduce their initial general fund budget requests where necessary. These general fund budget request reductions resulted in two outcomes. First, our committee facilitated a comprehensive review of department-level revolving funds to assist in funding recurring costs. Based on this review, it was determined that certain revolving funds have the ability to alleviate some of the pressure on the general fund budget. Accordingly, some initial budget requests from the general fund are being funded by available revolving fund revenues this year. That being said, a number of costs necessary to maintain level services are being funded by reserves available in revolving funds that will not be sustainable on an ongoing basis. And second, there are budget cuts to both the town side and school budget presented in Article 26. So what is driving costs to increase at an overall higher rate than revenues these past few years? Salaries and wages, these increase annually by an average of 3 to 4%, which includes a 2% cost of living adjustment, along with step and lane contractual increases accounting for the other 1 to 2%. Benefits, including health insurance expenses, are projected to increase by 8 to 10%. Trash collection costs are increasing by 20%. Utility costs are up 15%. Pension assessment increased by 8 to 9%. And inflation in general over the last few years has resulted in significant pressure on the operating budget as well. As a result of these costs driving overall expenses to outpace our available revenue, a structural deficit exists. From our perspective, the town has limited options to address its structural deficit annually as follows. First option, increase revenues without a Proposition 2.5 override request. The town is doing this. There were a number of articles presented by the town earlier tonight and more later at this meeting, the most impactful being Article 24 and 25 meals and rooms taxes that just passed. Second option to address a structural budget annually. Use available free cash reserves or other one-time funds to fund recurring expenses. The town continues to use a significant portion of free cash to balance the operating budget. Additionally, certain departments have drawn down on reserves built up in their revolving funds this year to fund recurring costs. Third option, cut recurring expenses. The town has reduced level service budget requests in each of the last 3 years, including this year. And the fourth option, increase revenue with a Proposition 2.5 override request. As we all know, last year, for the first time since 2005, the town requested a Proposition 2.5 override to supplement the town's general fund operating budget, which was voted down at the polls. While there is no override request included in this year's warrant, we anticipate an override request will be considered again in the near future. Key point here, our options are running out. Town leaders are currently working on a comprehensive plan that will be further developed in the upcoming months. From our perspective, it is not practical to continue reducing level service budget requests year after year just to achieve balance. A detailed and reasonable long-term plan must be finalized before next year's budget season. Reasonable budget growth rates need to be established for both town-side departments and the school department. Once these growth rates are determined, town leaders need to present citizens with an acceptable funding solution for a multi-year budget. If and when funding is secured, town-side and school departments must commit to maintaining budgets within their respective growth rates. So where do we go from here? Some good progress has been made this year in the development of a long-term plan by town leadership with our support as advisors. The town has made significant improvements to its financial budgeting reporting tools. ClearGov, a cloud-based budget cycle software, was implemented this budget season and has had a tremendous impact on the budget process. The upcoming integration of ClearGov with the town's plan to upgrade to its accounting software will further enhance the process of finalizing a longer-term financial plan. These software upgrades were necessary, will continue to increase transparency, and will provide better data to address financial challenges effectively. The town is making efforts to increase its revenues through alternative means with the proposed hotels and meals tax articles, rather than immediately resorting to an override request. Since these articles passed tonight, new revenue streams can now officially be factored into the long-term plan projections. The town is reviewing its processes in place to capture new growth revenues appropriately. By better aligning the building, assessor, and finance departments, the hope is that the town will be able to more accurately capture annual new growth revenues. New growth plays a critical role in the fiscal well-being of all municipalities. The town has officially adopted a free cash financial policy to strive toward an annual free cash level of 5% or greater of annual revenues. It's imperative that for the town to uphold its AAA bond rating annually by maintaining an adequate level of reserves. Department leaders have reassessed the utilization of their department-level revolving funds. Given the complex structural landscape we find ourselves in, it is imperative to view all revenue streams as potential avenues for funding departmental costs. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we have received commitment from both townside leaders and school leaders that they are prepared to move forward and finalize a longer-term plan in the forthcoming year ahead of next year's town meeting. We, the Finance Committee, are committed to advising the continued development of a long-term plan in the year ahead. We plan on holding monthly meetings beginning in June to receive updates and provide feedback on the plan itself. The time is now for a detailed and reasonable long-term plan to be finalized. We'd like to thank members of our current Finance Committee for all their contributions to another successful budget season. We'd also like to thank and commend the Select Board, all department heads, municipal employees, appointed and elected boards, and involved citizens for their collaboration. We specifically wish to express our thanks to Finance Director Alicia Benjamin and the town and school finance teams for the significant time, resources, and guidance that they dedicated to this budget process. Finally, we would like to thank Town Administrator Thatcher Keyser for his counsel, support, and leadership. Thank you.
Okay, so the budget is broken down into separate departments and then respective categories. The way I'll proceed will be to read through the departments, and if you would like to discuss a particular department or line, please yell out "hold," and I will put it aside. When I complete the reading of the department list, we will then go through the holds, and then we'll proceed to voting on the different categories. So here we go. And my favorite one, moderator, $100. Select Board, $681,218. Finance Committee, $3,210. Reserve Fund, $144,000. Finance Department, $1,636,928. Assessor, $299,440. Town Council, $112,000. Human Resources, $282,460. Parking Clerk, $12,650. Town Clerk, $238,732. Election and Registration Department, $91,415. Planning Board, $1,675. Public Buildings Department, $273,945. Police Department, $4,879,953. Fire Department, $5,484,479. Building Inspection Department, $668,738. Sealer of Weights and Measures, $250. Animal Inspector, $2,400. School Department, $46,759,111. Hold. Engineering, $210,559. Public Works, Highway, Tree and Drains, $1,896,988. Snow removal, $105,000. Waste collection, $2,840,038. Cemetery Department, $492,541. Health Department, $324,190. Council on Aging, $406,699. Veterans Benefits, $109,801. Abbott Public Library, $1,384,122. Recreation and Parks Department, $978,337. Memorial and Veterans Day, $7,550. Maturing bonds and interest is 11,000, I'm sorry, I wasn't going together right. $11,058,075. Other general government, $21,198,507. Sewer, $5,394,543. Water, $6,207,433. Harbor, $1,181,119.
Hold.
We have a hold on Harbor. Okay. The first hold is on schools. Yes, sir.
Scott Solberg, 1 Ramsey Road. Just some concerns. I'd love to see if FinCom could also comment on this, but my understanding, we heard many times that best practice is to push some of the money out before the year for special ed services to pay it down. It's like $500,000, and I understand that's being taken away. I understand that the cost for out-of-school travel, in other words, getting youth back to and from different schools, has exploded to over $1 million. I see in the budget that there's a reduction in our student services by at least a half FTE, plus when I saw the other budgets they were projecting, decreasing some of the special ed support services in some of the schools like Glover. We have a current situation where there's at least a 30% gap in most of our achievement outcomes for the 20% of our students that are getting special ed services. And it just feels like we're both going the wrong way and increasing the probability of parents needing to find alternative supports and services. So I'm just curious if we're setting ourselves up that next year we're going to be in a complete crisis. And I know FinCom, you've been at the table with them, but I'd like to hear from you. Are we ready? Are we setting ourselves up for a cliff next year?
Do we have somebody from the schools to speak on that? Oh, Alec Coolsby.
Yeah, I can ask the schools to weigh in a little bit, but like I said, we dug into revolving accounts for all town departments. The schools have reserves for special education in their circuit breaker. I believe you're still carrying that at 100% of what you receive. There are other reserve funds in their revolving accounts attributable to special ed. And I believe I got an update that the governor is currently reviewing to potentially be able to reimburse even more costs for special ed. But that being said, I will turn it over to the schools to give a better update to the more specific numbers. But I do think budgets are tight across all town departments with respect to special ed. Just Google it. You'll see every town is facing a very big challenge to address special ed services as well as transportation services for special ed. That being said, I think there are reserves in place currently, although moving forward without proper long-term management, I think there will be challenges ahead for all departments. Did you want to add anything?
In respect to the reduction of a 0.5 FTE in the special education department, what we have done in the last couple of weeks with the onboarding of our new assistant superintendent of special education or student services, we were able to add some duties to that role. So that individual will be covering the duties at the reduction of the 0.5 FTE was covering prior. We were able to leave 100% in circuit breaker. That was something the school committee felt really strongly about doing. It was a best practice we've worked really hard to get to over the last several years, and it really will put us on solid footing if something does occur, if we have additional increases. There's no debate on special education being a volatile area of our budget. but we've put every safeguard in place that we possibly can, while at the same time balancing fiscal responsibility in our current climate.
Thank you very much. That was Sarah Fox, Chair of the School Committee. And harbors. We had a whole on harbors.
It was actually on light, Jack. And the question is that there's no cost associated with any operating expenditures.
On light. Please. Thank you.
Good evening. We do not do the light department. That falls under a different statute that does not fall under us, and that is determined by state law. They have a board that does their budget.
Okay, so we're going to vote on categories of the budget. And the first category is, yes, total general government is $3,777,773. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor this line item, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. Total general government passes. The next category is total public safety to the amount of $11,035,820. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor this line item, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. Total public safety is a vote, and it passes. The next is total schools to the amount of $46,759,111. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor this line item, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. The school's line item is a vote, and it passes. The next line item is total public works and facilities in the amount of $5,545,126. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor this line item, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. It's a vote, and total public works and facilities passes. The next line item is total human services in the amount of $840,690. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor this line item, use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. It's a vote, and total human services passes. The next line item is total culture and recreation, in the amount of $2,370,009. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor this line item, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. Total culture and recreation passes. The next is total debt service in the amount of $11,058,075. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor this line item, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. Total debt service passes. Next category is total other general government to the tune of $21,198,507. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor the total, please use your red no button. 20-second voting starts now. Other general government passes. Enterprise funds. The next line item is total sewer enterprise fund, the amount of $5,394,543. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor the total, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. Uh-oh. Oh, we were doing so good. Let's go talk to Peter. The vote is 631 to 54. The vote is 631 to 54, and total sewer enterprise fund passes. Next line item is total water enterprise fund, the amount of $6,207,433. If you... Oh.
Jack, we have a point of order coming from the overflow room as a result of our inability to see the visual on the screen, the visual vote tally.
I went back and read the vote out loud, so not being able to see it, I read the totals out loud, and I'll do that again if I need to.
Sorry, I can't see that far. Somebody hit we're good.
Thank you, Vanessa. Okay. So I just mentioned total water enterprise fund, $6,207,433. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor the total, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. Do I see a final number in this? Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, yep. It's a vote. Total water enterprise fund passes. Total harbor enterprise fund, $1,181,119. If you favor this total, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor the total, please use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. Bless you. And it's an affirmative motion for the Harbor Fund. And the last motion I have is for a motion for the appropriation. And the motion is, and to pay for appropriations the amount of $115,368,206 to be raised, appropriated, transferred, or otherwise provided as follows. Raise and appropriate $83,155,355. Transfer $26,000 from Perpetual Care Fund to supplement the General Fund. Transfer $9,000 from the Conservation Commission Fund to supplement the General Fund. Transfer from the Sewer Fund $97,700 to the General Fund for indirect costs. Transfer from the Water Fund $128,904 to the General Fund for indirect costs. Transfer from the Harbor Fund $133,089 to the General Fund for indirect costs. Transfer $25,000 from sewer retained earnings to fund the sewer budget. Sewer users fees $5,369,543 to fund the sewer budget. Transfer $32,000 from the water retained earnings to fund the water budget. Water user fees $6,175,433 to fund the water budget. Transfer $180,000 from harbor retained earnings to fund the harbor budget. Harbor user fees $1,001,119 to fund the harbor budget. Can I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor of the motion for appropriation, please use your green yes button. If you don't favor, use the red no button. 20-second voting starts now. And the appropriation passes. Thank you. That was a lot of work to get through the budget, and I appreciate your help. So we are at 10:05. And I always put it before the meeting as to whether they, now wait a minute, before anybody even thinks about making this motion. If we do make this motion, if we do recess to tomorrow night, I need you to make sure that you are nice to the people at the doors and make sure that you give them a big smile when you put your clicker in the box. Don't take them home. Everybody put them in your hands right now. But I would love to seek a motion to recess to a fixed time, being Tuesday, May 7th at 7 p.m. at the Marblehead Veterans Middle School Performing Arts Center. Second? All in favor, raise your hands. Those opposed? Thank you.